Introduction to logarithms. Logarithms are a way for us to do operations on the exponent. That's the entire purpose of logarithms, is for us to get to the exponent to do calculations. The calculator that you use uses a lot of logarithms in the background to do some of your higher end functions that you do on solving. So, you had a to the x equals b. That's what we worked with last 2 weeks. You have your base raised to the exponent equals a number. On logarithms, that base is a subscript, the answer goes next to it, and then the exponent becomes the answer. And so it just rearranges. And one of the easy ways to remember how to rearrange is using a fish. And it goes back and forth that same way. A to the x equals b, log a, base a, to the of b equals x. And today we are just, for the most part, just going to be converting back and forth and doing some simple calculations. So, if we had a problem like 3 to the x equals 9, all of you could figure out what x is. But if we had a problem with 3 to the x equals 3.7248, you couldn't figure that out as easy. That's where a logarithm would help us actually solve it. You would do log base 3 of 3.7248 equals, and then just figure out the number based upon a calculation. Today we aren't going to be doing anything that complicated, but we will get to where we can find that answer later. And the calculator will help us do that answer. That's the reason for this. The first part, you're like, what's the point? We could do this other way, it's easier. The reason is problems I'm not presenting yet, in other words. So the first couple of problems, we're just going to convert back and forth. So if I give you a log base 225 of 15 equals 1/2. So I'm going to do my fish to help me remember where everything goes. This is my base. This is my exponent. And this will become my answer. So that means the base of 225 raised to the 1/2 power equals 15. Check in your calculator, does that work? 225 to the 1/2. Is that 15? Yes. Because remember, the 1/2 power is a square root. So let's do another one just to practice and see if we got it. Log base 17 of 289 is 2. So what is my base? 17. What is my exponent? 2. And my answer is the 289. Now let's try to go backwards. Let's try to go from the exponential to the logarithmic. If I give you 7 cubed equals 343, should have written that one down, I think that's right. Okay, so we're going to use the same thing. The base of your exponent, what it's taken of, and the answer. And so log base 7, And the base is a subscript. That's where it's written on your blue line when you're writing on notebook paper. It kind of goes with your tell. Of the 343 equals 3. Let's do one more. Remember, negative exponents means we move it to the denominator. So when I fish this, this is my base. This is what I'm taking it of. This is my answer. So log base 14 of, and typically when it's more than just a number, I always put parentheses around it. Definitely if there's multiplication involved, you include parentheses. Equals -2. So if you're just having to convert, it's this simplistic if you figure out the pattern. For me, that fish is the easiest for me. There's other things like the fish that you can find online. But the fish is the way I learned it, so that's the way I do it. The next thing is we're going to evaluate. These are all things that you should be able to either use your calculator to help you figure out or know. So, when you're evaluating, there's not an equal sign. So you place an equal sign and put it X. And then we're going to do our fish. So, 3 to the X is equal to 27. If you don't know it, use your upside down division and see how many times 3 will divide into it. And so that means that's the same thing as 3 cubed. So what would X have to be to make this true? 3. So if you don't know the factors, you have to use that, but you don't have to use that every single time. So again, we're going to evaluate. Log base 6 of 1 over 216. So start by putting my equal sign in X. Then do my fish. Because I have that 1 over, what do I know my exponent needs to be? Negative. 6 to the X is equal to 1 over 216. You're going to take this 216, and that's what you're going to focus in on to figure out how many times 6 will divide into that. We already know to get it down there, we have to have it negative. 6 will divide into 21 3 times. And 36, which is what's left, 6 times. 6 will divide into 36 3 times. Or 6 times, excuse me. So, if it was in the numerator, it would be positive 3. But we need to move it up. So 6 to the negative 3. You're probably not going to need to show me all the steps. I do want to see this step from everybody, every single time. Some of you will need to show me another couple of steps to get there. Others are going to be able to jump to the point of saying X equals -3. But that yellow circle is needed shown every single time. And let's look at this really tricky one. Log base 7 of 7. So we're going to start with putting our equal sign and the x. Fish it. 7 to the x is equal to 7. When's that true? When x is 1. That's the answer. Log with nothing written down here to 10,000. If we're evaluating this, we're going to go ahead and put the x here. So we're going to fish it, but we don't have anything to fish it with. Anytime this is the case, this number is always 10. So anytime you have nothing written down there and it's log, you do log base 10. So in this case, when we evaluate that, that's 10 to the x is equal to 10,000. So x, or excuse me, 10 to the x. Well, I know it has to be divisible by 10 if I'm going to be able to evaluate it right now. So I'm going to divide by 10 and see how many times that 10 will divide in. So if I divide by 10, I get 1,000. Divide by 10, I get 100. Divide by 10, get 10. So that's 10 to the 4th. So x is equal to 4.